Well, shalom, everybody. This is Dave from Universal Truth of Mankind, and I am your host. And this is Buyer Beware. Now, in Buyer Beware, we take a passage, take a verse, and we strip away thousands of years of religious rhetoric, religious doctrines, religious dogma, and we try to understand what the original intent and understanding of that passage. Now, unfortunately, in our culture now, we take a look and we say, oh, thus saith the commentator. And what the commentator says is taken as, I'll use the phrase, gospel truth. But is it true? So you have to understand when I look at the Sagiatic material, and I say this repeatedly in my introductions here, I go to the Talmud, I go to the Tosefta Mishnah, I go to, although the Mishnah is really part of the Talmud, I go to Midrash Rabbah, I go to the Zohar, I go to many, many different sources out there, and people misunderstand the sources. When you go to a source like these, people go into it with the mindset of, oh, it's going to give me the answer. No, it doesn't. What it does is teaches you how to think. And you take those thoughts and you take your thoughts and you join into conversation. That's what all these Sagiac materials are about, joining in. Same thing with Rashi, Rambam, and so on and so forth. Some of them, they give some very good ideas. Sometimes the ideas are not exactly right. There's more information, but it's teaching you to think so that you can join into the conversation with an intelligence. We don't see that in commentaries. Commentaries are, well, this is what it says. It could be this tree, it could be that, but they don't, or it could be this thing or that thing, but they never really look into it and try to fully understand the picture. So before we get started, like and share the videos. And also I am on Rumble and YouTube to both. Please be on them in case for some reason one goes down or one's unavailable or something. This would ensure your videos. So for today, we will be dealing with Genesis chapter 12, verse 1. So here is the verse. The Lord said to Abram, remember it's Abram, not Abraham. There's a reason for that, and we're going to find out later on. He says, go forth from your native land and from your father's house to the land that I will show you. And as I've said many times before, it's important to have a context in order to understand this passage more thoroughly. Now, like always, I tell people, please do your own studies. Go to all these sources that I mentioned already. Do your own research. I'm not going to read them to you because what if I just read one little portion of it and you really need to read the rest of it to understand? I want you to verify. I want you to come up with even further understandings and findings that give this passage even further meaning. Not too many people would tell you that, huh? To find a context, we see that Terah was 70 years old when he had Abraham, Nahor, and Haran. Now, it's important to understand Haran is an area also where the family escaped to. Yeah, I did say escaped to. They got themselves out of Ur. Why did they get themselves out of Ur? Well, you have to understand Nimrod. Nimrod was persecuting Abram because Abram wanted nothing to do with the idols. Yet Haran wanted to make idols. So there were two opposing people. And that's one of the reasons why Abram's name was changed to Abram at some point. But we will explain that soon. So they left. Now, who was Nimrod? Nimrod was a New World Order guy. See, this is nothing new. New World Order has been a problem for ever since our existence. There's always been somebody want to do it. You may not realize this, but down in South America, down in Chile, there was a courtyard, four-walled courtyard with 151 faces on it, supposedly representing all the different faces of humanity. That's why sometimes you may look at one person and say, well, that's similar to that person. Well, that person seems to be a blend of that type of a face and this type of a face, because supposedly there's 151 faces of mankind. Now, let's move on with that. What was unique or very interesting about this, very few people realize this or know this, is that there was a cuneiform, yes, cuneiform, which comes from Samaria. Nimrod wasn't happy with just being king of Samaria. He wanted to be king of the world. So there was a ceremonial bowl within this courtyard that had cuneiform on it, which was the writing of that area or writing of the time. And this cuneiform was to commemorate Nimrod as the leader of the world. So he was trying to become a very powerful man, not just of Mesopotamia area. So he was very ambitious and he didn't want anything that was going to deter his control. And obviously, he thinks he's God. So he wanted nobody else teaching about a different God, who the true God really was. And he had followers. So that whenever you can be an individual claiming one thing, if no one listens to you, no one cares. But as soon as people start listening to you and you start having a following, now the world leadership, the world leaders, the ones who want to be in control, then they go after you. But not till you have a following. So he had a following after him. Abram took 318 men and saved Lot, right? Rescued him. Where did 318 men come from? It wasn't his descendants. So we can see here that there was a time that his following were literally like his own people. Maybe not physically, but at a spiritual level. So he had a following back then, which also became part of Israel. That's why I say it's open to anybody. You follow Abram, Isaac, Jacob, Israel, right there. Let's go back to 12:1, and you see here it says Abram. Like I said, keep that in mind. So he's saying, Abram, go forth. Now, let's take a look at the interlinear and see what word's being used. We see here, halek. Great, means go forth. Wonderful. You look at this and say, okay, it doesn't really mean anything to me. Okay, fine. Let me go to Strong's. What does it say? Oh, this Hebrew word means go forth, or something else. Wonderful. I learned that this Hebrew word's translated what it's translated here, and all I used was a reference number to prove that, no, don't do that. Let's take a look at something else here. Now we see on the right-hand side the Hebrew, the actual Hebrew sentence. We see 12:1. Let's go along until we run into that word, halek or lek. The hey is a prefix. It just means like the, okay? Or the birth of this thing. All right, so let's just go till we find it. So we go over, we don't see anything yet, nothing there. We see Abram right here, and we see Lek. Okay, Lek and Leka. Wait, Lek and Leka, wait a minute, it's twice. Why does it show interlinear? It's only once. See, this is why you have to look. And this explains why, Leka Leka, why Avram was told to move on. Now he was to go forth from the native land, the area he's familiar with. He was to leave there to be shown a new land. Remember, land represents the lowest level of our existence, the physical existence here. But he also says, not only that, but also, and from your father's house to the land that I will show you. Now, why does it says land twice? But why is it saying leka? Why is it saying go twice? Now, some people will say, well, that's because he's emphasizing something. Well, no, that's not necessarily why. That may be true in other scriptures, but not here. If he's telling you to do something twice, he's telling you to do it in two ways. Go from the land. That means get away from the influences. Get away from the physical here. Go away from the physical. We're going to go to a new land, and I'm not going to tell you where it is. Did he know it was Canaan? There's debate about that in some of the discussions. So he leaves the land and he takes whoever wants to go with him. Obviously, I mean, his group that followed him, his followers followed him. He went. He went with his wife, Sarah. Sarah went with him. I mean, this is obvious from the further readings. But then, like I said, it says, and from your father's house to the land. So what's the house? Well, a house, as I've told you, bait, always, well, or tents, means a place of learning. So he was told to leave your father's house of learning idolatry and go to my house where you learn about me. And you're going to go to that land, land's mentioned twice. And this land would be special. And you're going to learn more about me. And you're going to possess that land eventually. So there's this mental freedom you have to go through, and also the physical freedom, so you think differently. Now, why did I mention Avram or point that out to you? Because Avram eventually became Avraham. Avraham was named because he was having a son. His wife was renamed. He was renamed. And when somebody leaves a land, transforms into free thinking, free form, now is influenced by the creator. You're in a wilderness where you meet up with me and you become mine. Remember, this is God speaking at this point. I will change your name because you have a new purpose in life. So to have this new purpose in life, he had to change his name, but he had to leave his familiar surroundings. Familiarity breeds contempt. And you had to leave the learning the idolatry of your father. So this is why he moved on. Good things to think about. Please keep reading the passage beyond, and it'll give you a better clarification of what was actually taking place here. He was on a journey, a 10-step journey, but that's another story. Take care, everybody. Shalom, shalom.